Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Bedtime FairyFails. I'm Kim. Our first story tonight comes with a few familiar faces. A couple of weeks ago, we did a story called The Whale Incident. That story was sent in by Alex from Boise, Idaho, who decided to send us another story from that same campaign. This is a tale of heroism, sorrow, and one fateful snap decision. This is Babies and Booty Calls. Once upon a time, about a year before the whale incident, a party of heroes were heading from their home in the city of Coalfield to the dwarven city of Irondown, in the nearby mountains to the west. The group had been investigating a secret cult of pyromancers that they had stumbled upon, and had been told by their demigod patron Avatar that a dwarven wizard named Hogarth Embervane lived in Irondown. Now, this guy had a bit of a fire fetish, and when you're looking for pyromancers, pyromaniacs are probably a good place to start. Our band of heroes consisted of Drez Ninefingers, the human rogue, Rand Wanderfoot, the wood elf ranger, Brutus, the high elf ranger, the drow sorceress Wisteria of Zombies, and her husband, Sir Robert of Zombies, a dragonborn bard. While traveling, the group comes across an army heading in the same direction. Brutus and Rand, being rangers, do some ranger things, and find out it's a mercenary army of sellswords, tribal savages, spellcasters, and even a few giants. This is bad news for the town of Irondown. So our heroes decide, since they're still a few hours away from town, to get ahead of the army and warn everyone, because it's the right thing to do. And also because savior status would help get information about and from Hogarth the Pyro. It's a win-win, really. They race ahead of the army and make it about an hour before the army arrives. They warn the city guards, and soon the armies of Irondown are armed and ready for battle. Sir Robert, Rand, and Brutus accept the offer of 500 gold to help out in the fight, while Wisteria and Drez decide to go off and look for Hogarth. Soon, the army attacks. Giants throw boulders and trees at the walls. Spellcasters are hurling fireballs and lightning, while the rest of the army uses ropes and ladders to breach the walls. The Irondown armies and our heroes fight bravely for hours until they are finally forced to retreat back into the mountain. Drez and Wisteria don't fare much better in their search, and soon head back to the main gate to help out their friends. However, on their way back, they stumble across a group of cloaked individuals performing some sort of ceremony from the second-floor balcony overlooking the entrance hall. The cloaked figures were focusing these arcane energy streams from their hands into a giant emerald crystal floating in the center of the room. Drez looks at Wisteria and says,
"What kind of bullshit is this?"
Just then, the crystal shatters, revealing giant dragon bones. They watch in horror as they come together and begin growing back their muscles and flesh. The crystal shards melt, flowing into the dragon like green blood, and soon, a fully grown black dragon is standing in the middle of the city. Wisteria and Drez stare for a moment before screaming, "Ah!" and running away as fast as they can. The dragon chases after them with a mighty roar. The rest of the party hears it and comes running to help their comrades. Now, our heroes are nowhere near strong enough to fight a dragon, so it isn't long before the only two left standing were Drez and Sir Robert. In a moment of despair, Sir Robert makes the decision to save his wife Wisteria and the rest of his friends. He takes off running towards the dragon with his gun axe banjo named Roxanne. As he approaches the dragon's head, he swings Roxanne into its face with all his might. Everyone is shocked when Roxanne explodes, incinerating Sir Robert and injuring the dragon so badly that it retreats into the sky. What the group didn't know is that before his attack, Sir Robert had strapped a few jars of alchemist fire to the blade and filled the banjo's interior with all the black powder he possessed for his blunderbuss, which is a gun with a flared barrel. When he made contact with the dragon, the jars set off a chain reaction, causing the explosion that drove off the dragon and cost him his life. The battle turned after that. The heroes were able to push back the bad guys, and Irondown was saved. The heroes, however, weren't celebrating. They were mourning the loss of their friend and Wisteria's husband. Finally, through tears, Wisteria tells everyone that she's pregnant, which would go on to be a major plot point in their hero's journey. The next day, their patron, Avatar, arrives to congratulate the group on their victory. As a reward for a job well done, he offers them a request of their choice. A wish, if you will. Drez, being the self-designated leader of the group, steps forward and says,
I think we all know what needs to be done.
He looks Avatar right in the eyes and makes his wish. He wishes for the hot elf bartender lady he met in another world about 6 months ago. He was always talking about finding her again, and now he can have her right here in their own world. Avatar snaps his fingers, and poof, there she is, standing right in the middle of the room. The group stares at him in stunned silence for a few moments. Finally, Drez picks up on the weirdness and says,
What? What's wrong?
Wisteria screams at him.
We could have had my husband back, you asshole!
Drez looks confused for a moment before realizing what they meant. He used their wish on a booty call instead of bringing back their friend. The group was furious, but in the end, Drez got the girl. The end. This next story comes from Liam McAdam. This is the story of Tarion, the warforged fighter, and his very, very short time with a group of adventurers who were only trying to help. This is Please Stop Helping Me. Once upon a time, deep in a dungeon, a party was hunting a crazed wizard. The dungeon was cold and dark with a faint, musty smell in the air. The party carefully follows the trail, keeping their eyes open for anything weird, when suddenly they see something weird. Our heroes had stumbled upon a long-forgotten warforged fighter named Tarion. For those who don't know, the warforged race are essentially sentient robots. Tarion had been abandoned there long ago after a zombie outbreak in said dungeon and was currently inactive. The party decided to wake him up because they had recently lost a party member and could use the extra help trying to fix a Holy Dragon Slayer sword. Isn't it convenient how when a party member dies, a new one always magically appears to take their place? But anyway, let's meet the rest of the party. We have Frederick, a wood elf rogue/barg, and his cousin Romero, another wood elf who is a ranger/rogue. A gnome wizard named Tick, and the last doozy of a character named JJ, who is a halfling, rogue, cleric, wild magic sorcerer who followed the god of chaos and was prone to subjecting the party to all sorts of mayhem. And this story is no exception. How did he cause so much mayhem, you ask? Well, one of JJ's 50 classes was Wild Magic Sorcerer. In case you're unfamiliar, occasionally when casting a spell, Wild Magic Sorcerers will have what's called a Wild Magic Surge. This is essentially a burst of uncontrolled magic that causes random effects. These effects can be anything from helpful to funny to devastating. One thing is always consistent, though. They're completely unpredictable. Shortly after finding Tarion, our heroes catch up to that crazed evil wizard and a battle ensues. There are arrows flying, weapons swinging, and spells being cast from every direction. As the battle rages on, JJ, the rogue cleric wild mage sorcerer, triggers a wild magic surge that seals up the newest party member, Tarion, in a metal block.
Let me out of here!
Yells Tarion. Frederick and Tick rush to free him while Romero and JJ hold off the wizard. The heroes are hacking and prying at the box with all their might. All the while, the other two are trying their hardest to fight back the wizard on their own. After what feels like hours, they finally break open the box and free the warforged hero. He takes off to rejoin the fight and give that wizard the old 1-2, when suddenly he's frozen in his tracks. Literally. JJ had triggered another wild magic surge, and wouldn't you know it, again, it had hit Tarion. Only this time, it super cooled him to below freezing temperatures, which rendered him unable to move and completely useless. Now remember, these heroes just met Tarion, and so far, they've trapped him in a block of metal and now frozen him solid. That's a heck of a first impression. Romero decides he's going to be the one to save the day and yells,
"Hold on, buddy. I'm coming. I've got a plan."
You see, Romero has a spell called Heat Metal, and what this spell does is heats metal. And what is Tarion made out of? That's right, metal. And it seems like a great idea in theory. Tarion is cold and needs to be warmed up. This will warm him up, and fast. Very fast, actually. Way too fast. Romero didn't know what happens to metal when it's rapidly heated from a super low temperature to a super high temperature. But Tarion does. Tarion is trying to scream, but he's frozen solid. He can't even squeak out a Tin Man-esque oil can sound. All he can do is watch as Romero raises his hand and casts the spell. Tarion feels his body start to heat, and in his final moments, all he can think is,
Oh crap!
and then explodes. And that was the end of Tarion, the warforged fighter who spent decades abandoned in a dungeon only to be rescued, then subsequently blown up in a matter of hours. The end. Thanks for listening. To submit a fail, email me at bedtimefairyfails@gmail.com or message me on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram as Bedtime FairyFails and Twitter as BT FairyFails.